We are now live. Hey again, from town. Thanks for joining in and following along today. It is an awesome day launching town, and I am here right now to speak with Brooklyn Decker, and I'm really excited to talk things sustainability, being a mom within the sustainability space. Also, she created a company dealing with fashion. Here she is. Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
doing well. How are you? It's so good to see you on
Nice
here.
to see you too. Um, it is freezing here. It's like 40 degrees right now. I'm so cold. I have to grab a sweater.
And wasn't it warm last week? What is happening?
I don't know. It
Well,
was 80
we
degrees. I
know what's
mean,
happening, but yeah,
that's why we're here.
yes. Congratulations on your, is this technically launch week or pre-launch week?
Yeah, this is launch. Today is basically launch day. So thank you so much for.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm
Me,
excited.
me too.
Um, yeah. So, if you want to introduce yourself, Brooklyn Decker.
Yes. Hi. I feel like this camera is very close to me, so I'm gonna just push it back a little. Give my face some space.
I'm like, oh,
Um,
this light is a bit much right now.
I know the ring light, we're all like have ring light, will travel. I am Brooklyn Decker. You and I, Jen, we met through, still not in person, but we met virtually because this is I think
The way we live.
yes, we have the same hairstylist in Austin, the same colorist. And I've always heard the most wonderful things about you. And we were in Austin for 11 years, and now we're sort of splitting our time between Austin and North Carolina. I just adore you and think everything you stand for is really incredible. And I love how you're so open with sharing your life. I too
This
am a
is about
mom.
you right now.
Right.
Yes.
No, no, I know. I too am a mother, an actor. I used to model back in the day. I had a company called Finery, that was basically about automating your closet because we have tools to automate our finances. We have tools to automate our thermostat, like the most sort of ridiculous things, not finances, but a thermostat. Do we really need that process automated? But when we're talking about sustainability and waste, there's so much waste in fashion, as we know. That doesn't change the fact that I love it.
I
It's
don't
like
know.
my guilty pleasure. And so, yes, we created Finery as a platform to basically wear what you own, which seems so simplistic in its concept, but is actually very rare for people to wear what they own. And we sold to Stitch Fix in 2019.
I know. That's amazing. Congratulations. That
Thank
is,
you.
I just read, I didn't realize, I think Melanie might have told me about that, about Stitch, because I didn't realize I've worked with Stitch Fix and I've used Stitch Fix, and
They're
that's
great.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, it's amazing. And I mean, you must have learned so, I mean, throughout your career with in modeling and obviously modeling clothing and then also creating an app and in ways to sort of monetize or capitalize on the clothing that you already have. I mean, it seems like you have a pretty good concept or grasp in sustainable fashion and understanding what that's like. Can you share anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about sustainable, I mean, I sort of grew up with my parents are vegan and environmentalists, sort of accidentally, like they wouldn't call themselves environmentalists, they wouldn't label it, but that's absolutely what they are.
No way.
We've composted my entire life. My parents grow their own food, they're whole food plant-based. So that's sort of like I grew
Oh
up
my
in
God, I
that.
didn't know that about you. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's sort of like my dad's a diabetic, so a lot of it's health related. A lot of it is because they're not self-proclaimed environmentalists. But I sort of grew up in that environment. And when you talk about sustainability, it's so challenging because like, what is sustainable fashion? Is it that you're using safe dyes? Is it that you're using things that already exist out there? Is it that you are a big re-commerce person, which is, selling your clothes and buying used? It's really confusing. And I think that sustainability is confusing because it's profitable when it's confusing, and it really puts so much pressure on the individual to like really do research, which who has the time to do it?
Hmm.
And so as far as Finery was concerned, it was again a really simple idea where as long as you can see what you have, you can actually wear what you have. And the stat, and it's escaping me now, but I think it's 70% of our purchases are redundant, right? So we're buying another pair of black leggings, or we're buying another denim shirt, or whatever, something we already own. And if we just
Right.
saw that we owned it in our closet, maybe it's tucked away in the back of a closet or a drawer. If we saw what we owned, we would actually use what we have. And the plan was to eventually create a platform where you could go into other people's closets and offer money for what they have. So it was like a way to sort of make women money. It was really feeding into like the circular economy. And you know, so that was sort of the goal behind it. And I feel like those kind of tenets are tenets I kind of adhere to in my everyday life. I mean, I think in so many ways I'm incredibly wasteful with the amount of travel that I do. Our business is wasteful with wardrobes. But I do try to make sort of daily choices that, because every choice we have is power, right? We vote with our dollar. And so I do try to make choices to be longer lasting and to be more sustainable. But I don't think anyone's perfect. I'm certainly not.
No, I mean, and that's really why I wanted to create this platform, because I mean, like you, I have parents who really leaned into environmentalism without leaning into environmentalism and growing food, and we moved from California to Montana and Idaho to kind of live a more rustic lifestyle, live off the land kind of thing. And it wasn't because it was like we are kumbaya with the world, but just, you know, I think they just wanted to be more rural. And so, you know, in doing so, like I felt like I had a grasp of the environment, but there's so many like things that don't make sense, or they're extreme, or, you know, it's this or that. And there's a lot of conflicting information out there. And it's not realistic to be completely vegan and you know, like get rid of everything, and my couch is just going to be such, and I'm going to throw everything away, or I'm going to hunt everything and furnish my home. And you know, it's just, you kind of, you know, it's these extremes, and so living in between. And so I really wanted to create a platform where we can talk amongst our community, learn from each other, talk to experts. We have a great team of journalists, and you know, finding things that are more fact-based as well, because it's like you hear one thing and then it's you know, contradicts something else. So it's just, there's so much conflicting information out there. So, you know, I want to figure out how to make these choices and empower ourselves, and you know, finding tips and tricks. And like, I mean, your finery is so cool, and seeing like, what do I already have, how can I utilize this, and you know, wear my own, like shop within my own closet, which I think is just so great and so amazing. And you know, I love clothes. I really love to shop.
Me too. It brings me so
And
much joy.
it does. And so it's this weird thing, you know, where I have to like reconcile and make smart decisions. Like if I'm going to buy that, then maybe how can I offset that, I guess. So it's just trying to figure that balance out. And, you know, it's a balance, and it's a journey is the biggest thing. So just bringing everyone along on this journey and learning from each other. Um, so you being a mom, and speaking to our community and stuff, you're a mom, I'm a mom. Do you find that you make decisions or choices based off of sustainability or being more eco-friendly?
100%. I mean, you know, that being said, I read a stat, and this, I'm like full of stats that are probably incorrect, but I read somewhere, speaking of misinformation, I'll continue to spread misinformation on this platform. I read somewhere that when you have children, your household becomes 6 times more wasteful, which to me makes so much sense, because it's like the pouches and the individually wrapped things, and there's so much that adds to the output of a home when you have children. But I mean, what are the alternatives? Families are on the go, maybe not these days, but before 2020, families were on the go, and we needed convenience. And
Right.
you know, I love the idea. When I had my first 5 years ago, I loved the idea of like making all my homemade snacks and making all the food, and it just didn't happen. It happened for like 2 weeks, and then that was it. It just wasn't sustainable for me.
Right.
And so because of that, because it's just inherently more wasteful, you think of toys, and we try to do all good would recycle plastic toys, but like I got my kid a giant plastic Barbie for Christmas because she was or not a Barbie, a big doll thing because she wanted a giant mermaid. It's like it's such a parenting and trying to be sustainable is such a contradiction, I think, in itself. But that said, there are so many choices, and moms especially are making 80% of the decisions for the household. We have so much power in the choices we make, and the people who we buy from, and the companies that we support, and the small businesses that we give our business to, and the materials that we're exposing our kids to. And so I mean, everything from like my kids' lunch boxes to the snacks they're eating to what shoes we're wearing. I do try to make sustainable choices. But I think the reason powerful is because in order to, in this day and age when, especially my family is very mobile, and again, we're sort of talking pre-COVID, it requires a lot of mind share to be sustainable and to make sustainable decisions. And people don't have the time and they don't have the correct information. And so I love that you're creating a space where sustainability can be as simple as giving yourself time to breathe throughout the day. It can be as simple as one decision you make. I think a sustainable life is so intimidating, even for me, and I feel like I'm fairly knowledgeable about it, because if you buy this to recycle, then who's actually buying the recycling, and does it get recycled, and should we reuse? I mean, there's so many different factors coming in, right?
And then the carbon, that you're putting out by driving the recycling to wherever it needs to go, and all the energy and it's all
water required. It's really, it can be very overwhelming to people who are really just trying to make the right choice. So to really distill it down to, I'm buying a lunchbox for my kid. I have to buy a lunchbox because they're going to school. Again, this is pre-COVID. What's something I can buy that's maybe not plastic? What's something that I can buy that I can use again for a makeup kit one day or a craft kit one day? There's actually Austin Baby Collection. I know you've supported them a lot.
I love them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're Austin, female founded, and they're doing a good job with that. But it's like, just to distill it down to simple decisions, I think is the best way to approach it. And I love that you are simplifying sustainability, because I think in order to have more people making easier decisions on the planet, it needs to be more accessible.
Well, thanks. Yeah, well, that's my frustration with it all, is that in doing my research and in just scratching the surface, what I found is that, one, it's very elitist and it's very unapproachable. So, and it's generally very one-sided and not very diverse. So,
Yes,
if we want to tackle this problem, we really need to come at a very holistic and well-rounded, diverse place. And we also need to make sure that it's affordable, approachable, that it's something that, people feel empowered to be able to do. And I think in doing so, you got to start small and simplify it. So, and listen, if I go vegan or if I go plastic free, I can't solve climate change. And, unfortunately, I wish that were the case. Like, I feel like it's going to help us feel a little bit more in control, making these decisions and combating climate change. I think it'll make us feel better about our health and a connection to our food and to nature and all that stuff. And it's all interconnected. But I think, we have to make these incremental changes, and also we have to vote. We have to have conversations. I really feel strongly about talking to our community, not just people that live next door, but people who live everywhere and in all types of communities, because we all live here on this planet. We all, whether we like it or not, contribute to the waste or the problems on this planet. So, we don't have to look at it in like the macro. Sometimes we could look at it, more like, what can I do? But, all of those things contribute. But it is really important to look for different ways in which we can have these conversations and start small and simplify.
yeah.
So, well, I mean, thank you for saying that. I'm really, it's just been a doozy for the last couple of years, because I'm just like, how do we talk about this, and how do we make this happen and grow? So it's, it's still a work in progress, but it is a journey. And that's the biggest thing, is to make sure that it is a journey, and, using our community and uplifting voices and making it a wild ride.
That's right. And I think to your point, you don't have to burden global health and sustainability all yourself, because you're right. One person isn't going to change it. Can we all do incremental change? Sure, but it's still not enough. To your point, it needs to happen. and so that people can make easier choices. Because again, to your point, it's expensive to be sustainable. And why is it expensive to be sustainable? I mean, that's absurd. It feels almost criminal that you have to have money to be able to like make these decisions, to have access to clean water. And actually, I saw one of your conversations earlier talking about environmental racism. I mean, this is a matter of survival for so many people.
Yeah.
And I think we're aware of it globally, but I think with an influx of news, we can really sort of create blinders, and it's happening here. It's here. It's in our backyard. I mean, landfills, there is a higher concentration of landfills in poor communities, and a lot of those communities are communities of color, and kids are getting sick, and that's a burden on the healthcare system. So the point is not to sort of overload everyone and stress everyone out even more, but the point is it's a release to feel like it's not all on you to fix it. And then if your family becomes sustainable, I think it's really, it's forgiving, and I think a bit of a relief to be like, okay, I'm going to do my part, but also this requires collective change.
Yes.
And collective change is what's going to get legislation in place so that people are protected, and that making good decisions or choices for your family isn't discriminatory or expensive or exclusive. And anyway, yeah, because we could talk about this forever.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Exactly. What do you, I mean, in sustainability, like what do you struggle with the most with it?
I think a couple of things. One, I like stuff. Like it makes me happy. The collection of stuff makes me happy. And it's like complete consumerism, and I feel really guilty about it. And I try to make pretty good decisions around that. But it's imperfect. And so that's one thing I'm really sort of guilty of that I have a hard time with. And also just, again, how much mind share it takes to make good decisions for my family. I mean, I don't know if this feels a bit doomsday. I don't know if you saw the report about this week with all the baby.
Where did you get? Wait, did you froze?
Oh, sorry.
So you say, and what?
Sorry. So, I don't know if this is too doomsday, but there was the report that came out, the congressional report about baby food and the high concentration of toxic metals in baby food, with like brands that are expensive, which good food, wholesome food should not be expensive for people, but they're expensive, they're nice, they have all the right ingredients on the back. And as I started to do more research, and I know very little about it, but it's because our earth is sick. Like people aren't letting the soil rest, and it's quite literally going into our food, and our babies are getting access to it. So I find that what's challenging is that you can think you're making the right decisions and you're still not making the right decisions, one, and two, it's just so daunting. It's just so daunting.
It is. It's very, and it's a rabbit hole. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, is this balance of, while it is daunting and you can go down that path of like, shit, there's glyphosate in everything, which there kind of is. How then, instead of going like, okay, this sucks, there's nothing I can do, what's the point? I'm going to shop fast food or whatever it is. Yeah. How then do we combat that now? And so that, in 50 years, hopefully maybe we can make those changes where it's out of the soil and we're back to regenerative farming, back to, wholesome, seasonal crops and cover crops and stuff. How do we make those changes now and decisions now? And so I think that's what I'm trying to like get to the bottom of, and simplifying it. I don't, there's some people who are probably listening like, I don't really give a shit about, and I nerd out about it. Like I'm like you, I just want to know, knowledge is power, and I want to understand like, well, how did this happen? And now, why are these chemicals here and then being removed and then mislabeled, and now they're labeled as this, and it's supposed to help me, the whole misinformation and bait and switch and stuff, and then how it, then it flows into the Mississippi River and, down by Louisiana, or in Alabama,
and people are getting cancer, and
but I want to figure out a way also of, okay, if that exists, how then can we empower others to, okay, if not that, like, how can we make these changes then in our own health system and in our diets and our food? Can we have more of a relationship with the food that we're eating and consuming, and maybe buying less packaged food or preservatives or, processed food? Like, how do we just figuring that out? And I'm really passionate about it, and I'm hungry to learn more and curious about it. So I want to be able to like take that information and deliver that, like, hey, try this, this, and this, and maybe we can combat that in a new way.
Yeah.
So I'm so
I think that's right. I think like just having what you're building, which is like a centralized place to have access to this information and tools to make better decisions, I think is a huge, huge asset for people. Because,
thanks.
you know, like one of my guilty pleasures, like a vice, is coffee mate creamer. It's all chemicals. It's
Yeah.
literally shelf stable and it's dairy. It's shelf stable. Like there's no dairy in it. There's no dairy in it. It comes in a giant plastic container. It is terrible. But I have had it since I was in high school. My whole family drinks it. Not my parents, but the rest of my family drinks it. I love it. I have it every day, multiple times a day. I love coffee mate creamer. So that I'm probably not going to give up. But I do know that with the food I'm consuming, or the food I'm giving my kids, or the clothes I'm buying my kids, or the furniture I'm buying, mostly antique, or whatever it is, I know I can make better decisions there. And so just giving people options to say, like, look, maybe you're not going to compromise on your makeup, but I know you care about this thing, so here's a way that you can make a change.
Yes.
And if everyone makes incremental changes, things that they're willing to, okay, I'm going to, investigate a sustainable option for this one thing in my life. If everyone starts doing that, it does lead to change. At the very least, you're distilling really disparate concepts into one place so that people can have a credible source of information, which we're seriously lacking today. And
Yes.
And that's so necessary.
Well, thanks. I agree with you. And I think the same thing, where it's just, there's so much over here and pulling from this and this podcast. They have a great podcast about, regenerative farming, and then they're really interesting about health and the gut biome and about sustainable fashion, but there's nothing that's like collective, and also having and uplifting our communities and having these conversations that are all in different aspects, because I also don't think you should be an expert to have an opinion on this, because most people, aren't experts, and we might, maybe some people don't even care about the environment, but if they knew that it helped their health or whatever, might make a more informed decision. So, yeah, I appreciate your encouragement and thoughts.
Thanks for letting me just spit out all of my just sort of brain vomit on you. I appreciate it.
I will take it all day. I feel like I constantly have like diarrhea of the mouth, so I will take all your brain vomit. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do have one last question for you. It has been an insane year, if you didn't know that already. But what are you hoping to leave behind in 2020, and what are you hoping to gain in 2021?
I'm hoping to leave behind, and I haven't figured out how to do it yet. I'm hoping to leave behind all the, I don't know that it's guilt, but pressure I've put on myself. I feel like, for the decisions we've made for our family, I feel like we're like failing our kids because they're not seeing people. And
Right.
From like a professional standpoint, I'm like, this is a year. When you're in our world, right? I mean, you understand this firsthand. Like as an actor, I'm in my 30s and I'm like, oh, there's a year of my career gone. Like it's dwindling. And there's all this sort of, you know what I mean? There's like,
wait till you
there's all
hit
this
40,
pressure.
then you're really like,
But right? I mean, especially for women, which is a whole other conversation.
yeah.
But I want to leave behind there's enough pressure on everyone right now. I want to leave behind the added pressure that I'm putting on my own shoulders, for my parenting decisions during this time and my personal decisions during this time. And then one thing that I want to bring in, I think like everyone, is just physical contact with my loved ones. I actually don't want to change a lot of our lifestyle decisions, like spending more time outdoors and really simplifying our lives, I think has been such a gift. And I know that we wouldn't have done that without this, challenging year. But I just want to incorporate more people into that.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
I just want to
How
high
about
five.
That's
Gosh,
it.
that's a great. Yeah. What do I want to leave? you know, and this goes into sustainability for those of you who are like, why are you asking these questions? I believe that sustainability also has to come from within, and you have to put your oxygen mask on first. So I am a strong believer in like, I need to make sure I am nurtured, and I'm going to do that in the most holistic, whole way that I can, so that then I am better for my community at large and my, you know, the planet. So if anyone's questioning, but for me, I really want to leave behind. I had a lot of self-doubt. I think especially throughout my 30s. And I want to really leave self-doubt behind. And, you know, like even this project that I'm doing now, it took me 2 or 3 years before I felt comfortable enough to launch it. And a lot of it had to do with like, I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert. I'm not an environmentalist. You know, people are going to think I'm crazy. What the fuck am I doing? And I want to leave all that behind, because I'm really not, I don't have any reason to be doubtful. I'm living this life, and I want to move into 2021 with, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I care about these things, and I am not going to apologize for the choices that I am making. I am just going to make sure that I am making better and more informed choices, and try to move forward guilt-free. And, you know, one thing also that really hit me pretty hard this last week was I listened to a podcast. Do you listen to ologies?
No.
Oh, it's so good. It's like, you know, all kinds of ologies, from like, I think zoology to psychology to biology and whatever. But this last one that I was listening to was really fascinating. And she was she was trying to figure out a way to like link economics to an ology. So it was basically economics with sociology. And
Okay. That's applicable.
It was amazing. I mean, it was it was amazing, because it was I can't think of his first name, but Levitt from Freakonomics.
Yeah.
And this other amazing economist who I believe she's still a student at Harvard, but I could be butchering that. But I mean, both of them, the two of them together, have like such powerful insight. And he was sort of talking about quitting. And I thought that was like so fascinating. He said, we don't quit enough. And you basically have to look at your baseline and your margins. And so often, you know, we look at like, I've already spent so much time and money, I have to forge through. But meanwhile, you know, the economics of that could be really taxing. And so if you also look at it from a parenting standpoint, and the guilt that we feel as a parent, like someone asked me, like, do you feel guilty by being a working mom? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But if you look at the economics of that and go, I'm providing food, I'm putting food on the table, or I'm sustaining myself, I am providing sustenance for myself that makes me feel stronger and enriched. Therefore, I'm a better mom. It was just really fascinating to look at it from like that sort of
I'm going
perspective.
to listen to that. I also think there's so much parenting pressure around delayed gratification and sort of like making your kids power through.
Yes.
And maybe that's misguided. I'm gonna listen to that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Can I give you one thing that a friend gave me a year ago when I was having this very conversation around your fears with starting this? I was going to a march, a protest that had to do with specifically environmental injustice, and there was going to be media there, and I was feeling a lot of shame around not being a perfect environmentalist and not being an expert, to your point. And a friend of mine gave me just like this perfect little nugget of advice. She said, perfect is the enemy of progress. Perfect is the enemy of good. And it just stayed with me, because if we all wait until we're perfect environmentalists, until we're perfect experts, until we know every bit of information that we can have, we're never going to get anything done.
Yeah.
But if we start it when we're maybe 50% of the way there, and then learn as we go and pivot, that's when you get real progress. And that was so liberating to me. You know, she's like, no one's expecting you to be an expert. You don't have to be. You're passionate about this. You're here to use your voice. You're here to hopefully spark change. Don't let the drive for perfection get in the way of your ability to make progress. And I just think that's something for you to hold on to too.
That was huge. I mean, I honestly feel like I just lost a lot of anxiety. I mean, that was just like so helpful. It's just a way of like, I already, yeah, I mean, I was just very, that was, I'm going to take that nugget and I'm going to run with it.
Good. A friend gave it to me, so I'm going to give it to you and pass it along.
It's so,
It's really liberating to say, oh yeah, that's it. It really helped me.
yeah, that really helped me. I so appreciate that.
Good. I'm so glad.
I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for taking the time. And this was so helpful. And I can't wait to continue this conversation and keep it moving.
Me too. Thanks for your work. Congratulations. And I'm so excited to see what you do with it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf
Oh,
of humanity.
thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, lady.